Hey guys, welcome to Talk About It with Nic and Glenn, episode 1. We're just going to be talking about many of life's questions.
Yeah, I mean, a quick disclaimer: we're not therapists, we're not psychiatrists. I'm from the Philippines, guys. We're not therapists or any sort of psychiatrist or psychologist. We're not even here to really give advice. We're simply just here to, remind you that you do have whatever it takes to remind yourself that you are powerful and that you are beautiful and that you do deserve to live in this world.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess we should talk about who we are first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, where to begin? Well, my name's Nicholas. I live in San Jose. I lived in LA for a little bit. I'm very heavy into film. We actually have separate YouTube channels and a production company that we're working on. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so we're up here in San Jose just sort of doing some film and living life to the fullest. I don't know. I'm sure more of me will come out later.
I'm Glenn de los Santos. I too pretty much grew up in San Jose. So I moved to the United States when I was 14 years old. That was in 2007. And I've just pretty much been living in San Jose ever since. And I too lived in LA for a couple of years.
We were roommates.
Yes. I graduated from Independence High School. Represent Sixers. Yeah. And I am just like Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Aaron is my wife, by the way. My beautiful wife.
Just like Nick, I too am a theater person. I don't think he mentioned that in the first couple minutes, but I have been doing theater since I was 16 years old. Love it. Still am involved in it. Just have been falling off the face of performing.
I know we both have.
Yeah. But I mean, this is, here's where we're picking ourselves back up. And I'm back in San Jose, pretty much just starting a YouTube channel. We both decided that we love relating to people and having people relate to us. So this is why we started this channel.
This is also our first one. Forgive us if we tend to ramble. We haven't done this before. Hopefully it'll be entertaining.
You're doing good though, Nick. You're doing good.
Thank you. I mean, so are you.
Beautiful. Everything you've said so far, beautifully said.
Hopefully it'll be entertaining. Hopefully you guys will get something out of it. If anything, just
translate it into something a little bit more inspiring in your mind, I guess. Yeah, do us a favor and give us the benefit of the doubt for the first one.
We'll get better as we go on.
Yeah.
I promise. So I mean, let's just jump into it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So what topic do we have today, Glenn?
Yeah, so today we have self-forgiveness. I realized, I've watched so many inspiring films and probably read a lot of inspiring books, self-help, and have watched a lot of self-help and motivational speakers. And a lot of times, a lot of the mistakes that they've talked about are things that can so be easily glorified. I mean, they're not mistakes that if people are playing baseball and they mess up and it's humiliating and people are making fun of them, and then all of a sudden they make it to NBA, National Baseball
Baseball?
Yeah, what is
MLB?
But oh yeah. Theater people, guys, we're theater people. But anyway, the point is that, it is a humiliating mistake, but there are stories that they rise up to the occasion, and then all of a sudden, it's those mistakes are glorified. They become heroes because of those mistakes. But what about those people who steal? What about those people who, I don't know, got drunk and just was all over the place and pretty much lost all of their dignity?
Or even who just make mistakes and it leads them to a bad direction.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be anything insane.
Right. And as I was telling them earlier, you can't just say that everyone deserves a second chance, and then when it comes to these people, all of a sudden you're
yeah. And we'll get into that a little bit more.
Right,
later,
exactly.
But...
So, I decided, why not? Because I too have my own shame that I'm still too afraid to share to everyone. So I just would like to, represent the people that are too afraid to come out of the dark. Yeah.
And by the way, before we really get into this, I would like to say that through all conversation we have, we're definitely not trying to offend anyone. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to have an open discussion,
right.
With multiple opinions and just see what comes out. I just like to throw that out there.
Right. And
As
you
a
know what? If you
disclaimer.
are offended, comment it out. Like comment on our channel.
Yeah.
No such thing as bad
Let's-
publicity.
let's
You're
talk.
helping us. So yeah, exactly.
Let's talk.
Let us talk, people.
All right. Let's get
All
into
right.
it.
So Nick, so this first question and pretty much all of the questions are going to be for Nick. So
Yeah, but you're answering them too.
Yeah, after you answer. Anyway, so do you have an embarrassing story, or to put it even worse, do you have any sort of dark secret that is still too raw for you to share to anyone, really? Yes or no?
Are you really putting me on the spot there, Glenn?
Well, it's just a yes or no. You don't have to tell us what it is. Yeah.
I'll give you a yes or no, and then I'll dive a little deeper into it as well.
Right.
I'm gonna say yes and no.
Okay.
And here's my explanation for that. Embarrassing stories I have a ton of. Like,
Okay.
who doesn't, I feel like.
Right. And I do want to hear some of it.
Yeah, now that I'm on the spot, I have to, like, they've all gone away from my memory.
Right.
So we'll probably get to that. As far as the dark secret that's too raw for me to share, I would say as of now, no.
Okay.
As far as like a dark secret, I can't think of something that I wouldn't be open about necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that I like really wouldn't be able to share, but I feel pretty confident in myself. Where am I going with this?
Yeah,
Like-
no, you've pretty much accepted who you are, and you've pretty much accepted your demons, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like,
you've made peace with your demons.
Honestly,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like at this point, if someone were to ask me about something, like really anything in my past or whatever, I would be able to talk about it openly without feeling like ashamed or feeling like I needed to hide something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So like as far as dark secrets, I feel like I can't express.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say no to that.
Right.
But I mean, like, who doesn't have embarrassing stories?
And just to put it out there, like, guys, like, if you have one, it's completely normal. Like, just knowing Nick, I can tell you that, like, Nick is, like, a ridiculously confident person. So, like, so don't think that, like, oh, now, like, what is this channel about? Because I, too, am not perfect. And there are some things that I can't even share with my own mom. I can't even share to myself. Like, I can't even entertain in my mind because I'm too embarrassed about it like that. But I do want to hear, just for kicks and more kicks, some just entertain us with something.
Okay, I'm trying to think of something that like is relatable and like meaningful.
Right.
But since I feel like I didn't think about this beforehand, there's one story that's coming to my head, and I guess I'll just say it, and we'll just see what comes out. It was probably like the most embarrassed I've been as a child. It doesn't really weigh heavily on me. I look back at it now, and I think it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. But whenever someone says like embarrassing story, it's the first thing that comes to mind. So I guess I'll just get into it.
Get into it, Nick.
Yeah, it's nothing like super crazy, but well, in third grade. So let me start off by saying I was a little shit in school.
Okay.
Excuse
All
my
right.
language.
Not cutting that.
Like, I don't know. I got bored really easily, and I messed around, and it wasn't my thing. So a lot of my teachers, like, took notice of that and were definitely not the biggest fan of me, which is cool. I get it.
Right.
But what I would tend to do is I would ask to go to the bathroom a lot and then just like wander the halls because I didn't feel like I was being benefited in class, because half the time I felt like I was learning stuff I already knew. And eventually my teachers caught on to that. So in third grade, I vividly remember this. I was sitting in class and I raised my hand and I asked my teacher to go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can hold it. I'm waiting like another 5 minutes, and I'm like asking my teacher if I can go to the bathroom again, right? Nothing, right?
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Now it's getting kind of bad. I'm third grade, right? Like, you can only hold your bladder for so long. I'm like, oh, God, this is so bad.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I ask her one more time, hey, I really need, it's like an emergency, I need to run to the restroom.
Right.
She's like, no. And at this point, I'm like, oh God, like I'm about to explode in front of my entire class. So I ran out of out of the classroom as fast as possible. Teacher basically yelling at me like as I'm running out because she thinks I'm just like running off into the distance.
Right.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I just have to make it to the bathroom. Halfway there, I lost it.
Right.
And I just like waterworks everywhere.
Right.
And I stopped and I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And so my immediate reaction, because I had no idea what to do at that point, was to go back into the classroom and like ask my teacher for help, like because I didn't know what to do. So I walked back into my classroom, pants soaking wet, just like it was not a pretty sight. I walked in, and like as my teacher was giving a lecture, I was like, "Hey, help." And like I just saw the look on everybody's face, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" So like, I mean, that's literally the embarrassing story I can think of because I remember being mortified in that situation.
Right.
I was young, so like it didn't last long. Like it's just people got over it. I'm sure I'll think of more embarrassing stories as we go on, and I will for sure butt in and tell
I
them.
mean, if it helps you, I mean, you've already accepted this, but I have peed my pants in public.
I mean, who hasn't?
As an adult, you guys, so
I'm taking that back.
So, like, or like literally at the bus stop as like everyone is watching. My next question to that was, now, I guess, I mean, you're someone who's already like accepted this and like can see this mistake now as something that can be laughed at. But at the time when you were a kid, how did you think people ended up perceiving you for the longest time? Because if you say this is the most embarrassing story that stuck with you at the time, like probably around 4th grade, 5th grade, when you remember the story, like it probably gave you goosebumps, right? Like how did you think people perceived you?
Yeah, I mean, I also like I went through weird phases when I was a kid where I think like from when I started school to like probably 4th or 5th grade, I didn't really care about other people, and the fact that like I sort of just did my thing and like like what other people thought or like how they acted towards me didn't bother me in any sort of way. And then getting into like 5th, 6th, like 7th-ish grade is when I first like something like clicked. And I was like not having it. Like I did not do well around people. I was not confident. Like any little mistake that I had or did, like I would overanalyze it and be like, oh, this person thought this, or I would be really concerned with what other people were thinking about like just like the smallest stupidest things.
Like you're saying like as you were like closer to the time period that like you peed your pants, right? Or just like
no, it was actually after, like when I did that, when I had that accident, I was in the phase of like not caring.
Right.
Which is why I think I got over it so fast.
Right.
Whereas if I was in the phase of like caring what other people thought, it would have been more of a like block for me. Right. But like I ended up, I can't think of a specific thing. But I definitely like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, like would overanalyze every little thing I did. And it was like hard for me to get out of the house. Like I had so much anxiety of like, what are people gonna think of me?
For me, someone who still has something that's really raw, for me, like I can totally relate to that, because it gradually, basically from like all the accumulating like embarrassing mistakes that like when they come back to you, pretty much like, one, it is a little bit harder to get out of the house. Second, you can also relate it to, where when you say your body's your own temple, like it's hard for me to express myself outside of my own temple. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's so hard for me to even go for my dreams because I'm afraid that all the mistakes that I've done are going to catch up to me later, and that it's going to come biting me in my butt.
That's super
in the butt.
interesting.
Well, anyway.
No, that's
But,
that's super
again, you
interesting.
guys, I'm still foreign, so yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Because I don't think that way as far as like,
Right,
oh,
right.
if I make a mistake, it's gonna come back and haunt me.
Right, right. But obviously, I mean, who? I guess yeah. Someone later on could be like, haha, that's the guy who peed his pants. I'm not trying to make fun, but I'm just saying.
Now everyone
there-
knows.
I'm just saying. There's also like, I'm not saying that your problem was any less hurtful. I'm saying there are also other like really really cringe-worthy mistakes. That,
I mean,
like,
have you had one that was like detrimental to you?
I still do.
Can you give me an example?
Oh, I mean, I can think about like times when I like got drunk. Yeah, like you
But, like,
get really inappropriate.
But is
and
there one specific instance that you really like maybe look back on and you're like you just like overanalyze it and it's like not like good for your
Yeah, I mean, yes. Okay,
let's talk, Glenn. Now's the
no,
time.
we'll talk about it when it's not recording.
No, Glenn.
No, I mean,
We'll come back to it later.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get it out of you because I feel like it would be really therapeutic not only for you,
Right,
but
right.
possibly someone could relate to it
Right.
that might.
Right. But also, I like the thing is that like, see, this is why what I'm saying is like we're not here to give advice. Like we're not basically here to like abracadabra, forgive yourself. We're not here to do that. We're basically here to just tell you that like you're not alone. Like there are people out there who are just as who feels just like, if you're someone who feels really icky about yourself, like you're not alone. There are other people out there who are in the same boat as you do, and maybe that like knowing that you're so normal can probably help you alleviate the I guess the pain a little bit. Does that make sense?
And you want to know something that sparks in my head when you say that is that
Yeah.
like when I was a child, I was always so like like angsty and like no one gets me, and I still am like that.
Right,
where I'm
right,
like
right.
no one gets me. Like I'm so like such this like singular person, and like nobody could know what I'm going through, and nobody can live what I'm living because I'm so like you know what I mean? Whereas like, and then I start like talking to people, and I realize that like everybody has that like that issue, whatever it is, like,
Right.
that they have trouble dealing with, and I feel like everyone wants to have that like, oh, it's just me, I live with this.
You
like,
think so? Like,
I kind of feel like either they want to be not like intentionally, right? Not like
Right,
I
right.
want to be the only one who suffers, but like it feels like such a singular thing because it feels like no one else can possibly go through what I've gone through.
Right.
Because like your life is so singular.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like when you look in a broader spectrum, like there are a lot of people who can relate with issues that you have.
Right.
And like if you don't talk about it and you don't like express it,
Mm-hmm.
it bottles up inside and it like explodes.
Right.
Which like I know I have an issue with, like for
But
sure.
I do believe though that like, if you are allowed to express it privately, which
just
so
trying-
I'm just like letting you know,
You're
like
just trying to get out of it.
we can talk, I can express all I want, but like let's respect me for a second. Okay, now so let's talk about something that's like, I know you've already forgiven yourself for like maybe I've screwed other people before, and I'm not gonna deny that. Do you have just so I can ask the question properly?
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember of a time that like you could probably be like, yeah, maybe I wasn't necessarily the good guy in that situation?
I mean, yeah.
Now, so my question is, right before committing, I guess, right before like giving into the temptation, were you honestly thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to be like repulsed by everyone?
No, and I love this because you and I have talked about this before.
Exactly.
Where like I've never done stuff like really like intentionally to hurt people.
Right.
Like I'm not
right.
like, I don't wake up in the morning, I'm like, who can I hurt today? Right? Like it sucks. It's sort of like a weird subject for me because like I know that I've hurt people like, I feel like who hasn't, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right, right.
in one way or another, but I've never intentionally set out to be like, I'm going to be evil.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
I definitely thought, like, whatever it may be at the time, it was the right choice. Even, like, okay, I may have had, like, a doubt or been like, maybe not.
Right.
But I feel like those situations put you in, like, a learning situation, right? So, like,
Yeah.
if I screwed someone over unintentionally, now I know,
Right.
right? And I like to live by this thing of, like, no regrets.
Right, right, right.
What I mean by that is this, not like, oh, I don't regret anything, but like, if I didn't do something in the past, what, like, how could I learn for the future?
Yeah.
So in that
Exactly.
stance, I don't necessarily regret anything I've done because now I know
You've learned.
I've
Yeah.
learned.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not trying to justify your guys' mistakes. Like, we're not saying that you did the right thing. That, what we're saying is that we're sure that you had your reasons. We're here to tell you that at that moment, right before committing that mistake, we know that we still see the good in you, is what we're basically saying. We believe that you didn't just do it to be intentionally sinister. You know what I'm saying?
And like, keep in mind that, like, because I was thinking about what I just said. When I say, like, I don't have regrets, there are
Right.
things that I regret doing 100%.
Right, right, right.
Right? Like, I'm not like saying like, everything I've done is great. But like, what I've taken from those moments, I feel was very beneficial for my future.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So like, if I could go back in time and not do something, there are things that I would not do.
Right.
Like, now looking back on it, being like, wow, that was a really stupid idea. Or like, wow, I can't believe I didn't think about that harder
Right.
before I did it. But on the positive side of it, because I always like to try to get the positive side of it, right?
Right.
Now I know what not to do in the future, and I can make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Wisdom from Nick.
I don't know if that's a wisdom.
I've already asked you this before, but say, like, if for us out there who still are torturing ourselves because we've made this humiliating mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like, this guru just showed up and says, I can free you from all regrets, all you want. What would you ask that guru?
What would you ask him?
I would ask him, how do I learn to love myself? How do I learn to forgive myself? I mean, yeah, that's a silly question.
No, I don't think that's silly at all. I think
how do I learn to be happy about myself? Yeah, how do I find the comedy in my life? There you go. How do I find the comedy in my life?
You know what I genuinely believe about this?
What?
And people could totally disagree with me and be like, really, like, they
Okay.
could be upset. You can be upset with me for even saying this.
Right.
But I feel like no matter who you ask about that, it's a you thing.
Right. That's true.
No matter what.
That is true. And hey, guys, like, trust me, it is tough, and when it comes to things that only you can answer, I for sure, and I'm pretty sure Nick too, I for sure know how frustrating that can be. And so again, I just want to remind you that you're not the only one going through something that is just as frustrating as what we're going through. Yeah. And then again, maybe let's go back to your third grade situation.
Okay.
And there were times that when the images would come back to your mind, like, it literally would almost bring this, like, really, really awful, I don't know, it doesn't bring back, like, comfortable emotions.
I mean, no.
Right. Where did you find the strength to finally forgive yourself? And you can apply that to an even, I guess, grander situation.
I mean, that's like a long time coming, I think, like, for just like stuff, like, in general, like the, like, self-love and like appreciation and like self-forgiveness, I think, is like an ongoing struggle, right? Like, for me personally, I go through phases where, like, I, like, love myself and I think I'm, doing great and super confident. And then I have my phases where I'm just like, oh my God, like, what? And it's so weird how it changes so fast. Honestly, for me, and I'm not really sure how to express it because it was such like I said, it was like such a like self thing.
Right.
Where I literally just like changed my mindset.
Okay.
Like I used to be so negative, and like I still find myself becoming negative in certain situations.
Right.
But I think it's like the self-awareness of that and just like trying to turn it into a positive situation no matter the issue. Obviously, like, it's hard for me to do all the time. It's hard for anyone to do all the time. But any like negativity, I try to like just flip it into a positive situation, right? Like I guess you could say glass half empty, half full, which is such a like basic thing, I feel like. But like you can really apply that to every situation, no matter what the situation is. Like there's always a half empty, half full thing.
Right.
Like here, do you mind if we do something right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Think of a time where, and this is just like a little game I like to play because I do it with myself,
absolutely.
so it might be helpful.
Okay.
Think of like an embarrassing situation for you that you felt like very embarrassed and you just feel like very negatively about. It doesn't have to be super intense.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, now that we're talking about peeing pants, like I basically peed my pants in public and then had to go to an audition after that and had no change of clothes and everyone had to smell it and everyone's basically like, what is that? And I had to like lie to everyone and say like, yeah, I like went to this bathroom and it like stunk so bad that I think like the smell like came to me and like but really, I mean, the truth was that like I was the stank or whatever.
Okay, so that would be like
why? Okay,
I'm assuming you feel negatively about that.
I mean, obviously it's something that's like I can laugh about now, but yeah, I can't think of anything that's...
So that would be like the glass half empty, right?
Right,
okay.
Yeah.
So now what I like to do is apply that sort of motto to the same situation. So like you first think about the negative that you peed your pants and you had to go to audition and you smelled like pee or whatever, and that like that was embarrassing. But what's like the glass half empty or half full side of that situation? Like what's the positive about that?
Well, I have a funny story to tell.
I think that, you know, it's really easy to apply that glass half empty, half full motto to like something like peeing your pants or like tripping in public or doing something small like that. The trick is applying that to something bigger in your life. Right.
Yeah.
So like for me personally, what I did is I started applying the glass half empty, half full thing to smaller situations in my life to start out with. And like continually like doing it to bigger and bigger problems until like the biggest problem could happen and I could really sit with myself and just think about it.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because like I've read like a book by Byron Katie where it's basically just, if you're scared about something, then imagine facing your worst fears. And so that happens. Okay, then what? Then that's going to happen, right? Okay, then that happens. What now? And then the next thing is going to happen. Then what now? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like, what worked for me is like starting small and gradually working your way up. And it applies to everything. Like once you like switch your mindset in that way of like applying positivity to any situation, even if in the moment you don't react to it in a great way, you can always look back on it and not have the like dreaded feeling of like regret and like despair. Right? Like you can find a positive thing that comes out of it, which I think is always helpful for your own peace of mind, at least for me.
Yeah, I guess like if I do end up like going to jail because of what I've done, like now I'm a badass. Like, I mean, obviously I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a completely different situation. But anyway, I'm not in jail now.
Before we end this, because I know we're getting close, I want to sort of bring up something that we sort of were talking about earlier, right? And it has to do with not only like self-forgiveness, but I guess like forgiveness towards others. And this may be for like a different day. But like I think I want to like mention it and just see where we can go with it for a second. It's all fun and games, I feel like, when we're talking about self-appreciation and like, but you know, let's say that your demon is like you did something, robbed a store, right? Or like
with a gun in your hand.
Like you did something like bad. Like that is against the law. As far as like self-forgiveness when it comes to that, and then like forgiveness towards others, what are your thoughts on that?
Again, it goes back to right when you did it. I don't rule out the fact that I'm not justifying the fact that, I'm not saying that you did the right thing by robbing a store with a gun in your hand, but I'm also not ruling out the fact that you probably had a dying mother that you had to take care of. You know what I'm saying?
Like, or like some sort of motivation.
Right. And I'm not saying that all of the robbers out there have that kind of story, because at the same time, yes, like there are consequences for what you do, and I believe it's just like the natural law of nature. For every action there's an opposite and equal reaction, like so there should be consequences. I don't know, that's not for me to decide, but at the same time, what we're here to do is remind you that, you're not bad. You're not all bad. You're not, you're not all bad. I mean, I've never had anyone point a gun to me, and I'm probably gonna, I'll probably have a completely different opinion of that person once the trauma happens. But right now, all I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily ruling out the fact that, you had your reasons.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, anyway, I'm rambling.
No, yeah. And I mean, I think we can honestly get into it a different day, but because I feel like that sort of glosses into a different subject.
Right.
But I just wanted to like start it now and bring it up and just see like where we go with that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Questions.
Okay, now, second to the last question,
Mm-hmm.
How can you, or how did you turn your humiliating mistakes into something more positive or even more inspiring?
I feel like we kind of went over that.
Right.
But I'd like to add something.
Right.
I'm going to say it again probably until it gets annoying, of like this glass half empty, half full thing.
Right.
But not only do I use that as like positivity of like, oh, there's always a positive in something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also motivation for the future, right? Whether it's to be better, to like fix an internal flaw that I have. Sorry, there's the squeaking in the background.
It's cute though. Like, I mean, if you're seeing it, it's cute, but because you can't see, it's probably annoying.
Yeah.
But
anyway, using that like the positivity and driving it with motivation, I think is like a really good way to not only get through life happy, but also to achieve things that you want to achieve for yourself.
Right.
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, no, perfectly. And as I was actually writing these questions, like something came to me, and it's like, speaking of humiliating mistakes, like I just want to remind everyone that Kim Kardashian became famous because of her scandal. Like I just want to remind you guys that, like, something is embarrassing right now could probably just turn out to be the best thing that ever happened in your life, and that's something that I need to remind myself of. But even if
that's like a mental like switch,
right, exactly.
Like even if that's if something really devastating happens to you, whatever it may be, even if that's just the click in your mind to be like something needs to change, that could be the difference between like you living your life in fear and hatred, and like living a positive, happy, exciting life.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that pretty much just wraps up our first episode.
Yeah. Hopefully it was like somewhat entertaining, helpful. Yeah. I'm sure we will get better as we continue.
Right. Yeah.
Not too much like rambling.
I just hope that helped you realize that there are other people out there who are feeling just as secluded. Is that the right word? As secluded as you are, because they're too afraid to express who they really are. And I do believe that your flaws are what makes you beautiful. Your flaws are somewhat your power even. And that is why I think in our world right now, we're taught to hide our flaws, and we see that as a bad thing. But I do believe that in some ways we're taught to hide our flaws because people want us to hide our power. They don't want us to immediately just show everyone our real strengths. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think that, everything that you have inside of you, you can find a way to make it a strength.
Right. Yeah.
And like suppressing that is just
absolutely dumb.
All right, guys, that wraps up our first episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for us or any topics that you want us to discuss in the future, please feel free to email us at talkaboutitquestions@gmail.com, and make sure to follow us on Instagram at talkaboutitpodcast.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.